It's the opening Saturday in October. It's week number 6 of the 2024 college football season. It's a Saturday live on SportsGrid. It's college football today. He is the mastermind of the college football pigskin. That is Joe Lisi. He is OK Dubs. That is Kevin Walsh. And I am Ben Stevens. Week 6 Saturday, the first in October. And unlike last Saturday, or perhaps the upcoming Saturday, Joe, it might not be the most robust slate we have ever seen. In fact, only one technical ranked versus ranked game. It's in College Station with the number 25 team in the country. But we've got a national championship rematch. We are firmly into conference action around the country. It is still college football, and it's the opening Saturday in October.
Oh, and it's a setup week, right? A huge week next week, October 12th. We know about the marquee top 25 battles, but these games today will dictate conference championships and, more importantly, college football playoff odds, Kevin. For some teams, they need to rebound in a big way, and for others like Missouri, you really need to prove that they're deserving of a top 10 ranking.
We also had big games yesterday. UNLV losing to Syracuse in overtime, probably the bigger result compared to Oregon, Michigan State, because the Rebs trying to get that final bid. That loss there, it doesn't ruin it. It hurts, though. It certainly does, considering they battled all the way back. I'll say for Oregon in that 31-10 victory, Dylan Gabriel with multiple red zone interceptions tanks his Heisman number. Last week, pregame, 11, 13-1. The way a lot of the superstars performed didn't kind of set up for him to jump a lot.
Yeah.
But playing in a primetime standalone game against Sparty, I thought he had the chance to kind of reinsert himself ahead of Ohio State. Down to 25-1, a lot to be desired leaving that performance.
The first game this year as well for Oregon signal caller, less than a 75% completion percentage, 20 of 32 last night. Multiple touchdowns for the 5th consecutive games, but multiple interceptions. Oregon does win 31-10, a late field goal under 30 seconds left. We see you, Jonathan Smith. MSU does cover as a 23.5-point underdog. To Kev's point, UNLV ranked inside the AP poll for the first time in program history this week. Off to a 4-0 start in Sin City for the first time since 1978. They lose in overtime last night against my Syracuse Orange. Kyle McCord continues to light it up on the stat sheet. But also, Kev, for the running Rebs, a non-conference loss, still everything in front of them in the Mountain West, but the overall resume, trying to be that top-ranked Group of 5 contender as a conference champ to earn the auto bid to the CFP, did take a little bit of a hit last night. So maybe it's not the greatest slate we have ever seen. Maybe we don't have 5 or 6 ranked versus ranked top 25 tilts. But we do have some interesting spots. You mentioned a setup week, a prove-it week. Could it be a chaotic week? We've got 8 ranked teams on the road this week against an unranked foe. 7 of the 8 laying at least 8.5 points away from home. There is only one team that is less than a touchdown favorite. In fact, there is only one ranked team against unranked competition that is not even a favorite whatsoever. Joe, we begin with our CFT game of the week for the opening Saturday in October. It's the national championship game rematch. Tonight, under the lights, inside Husky Stadium in Seattle. It's Washington. It's 10th ranked Michigan, the reigning national title winners, on the road, Joe, as a top 10 team in the country with a national championship to boot, and an underdog is the right side favorite tonight in Seattle.
Well, I think off the first 5 weeks of the regular season, you can make the argument a West Coast trip for Michigan and the Danger Man have not looked good or consistent back-to-back weeks. They eke out 3-point victories. But, you know, what a difference 6 months makes, right? Alex Orji for Michigan averaging 147 passing yards per game. Kevin, on the flip side, Will Rogers averaging 298 for a team that beat Eastern Michigan, Weber State, and Northwestern to their resume. We'll see how this plays out. But I do feel that Washington, just based off the West Coast trip, should be about a pick to a 1-point favorite.
Yeah, I mean, look, we got the Danger Man in action here in a big spot on the road. It's not his first time as a dog. Was a home dog to USC. Steps up, leads a comeback drive. Again, a lot of people would say there's no way this offense could lead a comeback drive. Well, they did. You look at Alex Orji, nearly goes over his week-to-week total. I mean, triples his passing amount from week to week. Goes through his passing total in that game against Minnesota. And I think the way we're looking at the Wolverines is people want this team to fail. And it's clouding the way we're having conversations. I've heard this week, Washington, great pass defense. I'm sorry. Who cares? What does that matter? I thought Alex Orji couldn't pass the football. Looks like you're maybe showing a little respect to the danger man here. And again, people are like, oh, Michigan, they keep blowing these big leads. That's right. Because Michigan keeps getting up out in front with the danger man here, but extra focus when you have a championship rematch on your hands like they do against the Washington Huskies. I think Sharon Moore, with the coaching advantage, I still believe in his talent. It just has to clean up a few things. If this team could protect the double-digit leads that they've had in consecutive games, they're entering into this building a 4.5 point favorite on the road here. I continue to respect Alex Orji and the Michigan Wolverines.
As we saw there, it's no longer Davis Warren. It is the danger man in Alex Orji. And it's a national championship game rematch that loses a bit of its luster because of all that was lost, production and talent-wise, from a season ago. Not just players, but of course, both of the coaching staffs with sweeping changes. Kalen DeBoer now in Tuscaloosa. He was the head man at Washington the past 2 years. Now it's Jed Fish. We saw Jim Harbaugh leave for the National Football League. Now it is Sharon Moore. Only 36% of the returning production from last year's national champs. That's Michigan. Only 40% from the reigning national runner-ups. That's Washington. The two least amounts of returning production at the FBS level of all power conference teams, which leads us to tonight. We've got a very interesting matchup based on the schemes. And Lisi Guy, the total is minimal. It's a Big Ten battle expected in the Northwest. 41.5. Washington, one of 6 teams that ranks top 10 in both scoring and total defense this season. Michigan still great defending the run. They've been a little bit shakier in the secondary to begin this season. What do you think the offensive game plan looks like for Jed Fish and his Huskies?
Well, again, you want to attack over the top. To your point, Michigan's given up 248 passing yards per game. We saw Minnesota run some up-tempo in the second half, get within that number of 9.5 and make it a game in regards to the fourth quarter. You have Will Rogers. He's been clean with the football, 74% completion percentage, over 1,300 yards, 10 touchdowns, no interceptions, and they're averaging 298 per game with 2 big play wide receivers, Kev, Denzel Boston and Giles Jackson. Yeah. But again, to me, you need to have time in order to hit those wide receivers, and that's where I think that could be an issue. Offensive line of Washington going up against that front seven of Michigan, to me, that's where this game is going to be won or lost, and I favor the Wolverines in that type of situation.
But again, I think this is just where people's dislike of Michigan is clouding a little bit. I know you're on Will Rogers. I'll let you break that down. But there's some conversation like, man, Rodgers going to be able to throw on this team all game. But Brosmer had to throw all game because they were down 21 going into the fourth.
Right.
Miller Moss had to throw 50 times in that football game because they were down double digits for the majority of it. And there's no way anybody's crazy enough to compare Will Rogers and Washington's offense to Quinn Ewers and Texas's, because that is a crazy comparison to make. So I just think that, again, people are manipulating the numbers here a little bit to get to the conclusion that they want, that Washington is as good as Michigan. The evidence is not there to suggest that that is the case.
Let me quickly spin it back to you. You were on the danger man. Alex Orji over 72.5 passing yards last week against the Gophers. Skied over that with 86.
That's right.
Now we're at 87.5. How do you think the Michigan offense looks tonight against the Huskies?
Book showing some respect here, jumping the number up on Alex Orji. I like him in the rush attack. They dropped that number. 32.5 is very light. We saw Lisi's guy, John Mateer, Gardner Minshew-esque, run for a lot of yardage against this Husky teams. I think we'll get the Orji buy low on the ground in this game and hit a few explosives.
Khalil Mullings as well. Michigan's lead back, multiple rushing scores in each of the last 3 games. More CFT next.
Anyone that's been to a sporting event, the atmosphere before a game, I think Game Time Decisions has that same exact atmosphere. This is our arena. This is what we do. There is going to be an energy to Game Time Decisions that you will feel night in and night out. The excitement you get when you lock your bets in, when you're figuring out what you want to do, we can zone in on the biggest games each night, I want this to be the place that people come to before the games start so they feel as ready as possible to lock in their cards. We are going to hit every single one of those markets that you need to know about. We're going to go through every single thing, and I've got a great team behind me that's going to help me get the job done. There is not going to be a better place, I promise you, than Game Time Decisions to get that new information, react to it, and be able to then bet accordingly. We will have everything at our disposal, and we will use that to our advantage. I'm Kevin Walsh. Tune into Game Time Decisions from 6 to 8 p.m. Eastern on SportsGrid.
I do a sliding DiVincenzo to the 1. Obviously, Terrence Jennings Jr., that is actually dynamic offensively and defensively. So we'll see how it works. I think it's a little bit of a work in progress. Do both teams win? Yes. I don't think at the end of the day, Minnesota could have afforded to keep Cat, Rudy, and Ant for that amount of money.
Betting above the rim. Only on SportsGrid.
It's the opening Saturday of October in the 2024 college football season, and the next game we're about to break down can show you how much changes over the span of a month. Expectation and understanding of what we have seen with the September sample size around the sport. Kevin, the summer months, we all looked at this opening Saturday of October in ACC action and said Tallahassee, Florida, Florida State, Clemson, a game that might decide the ACC title race right here, right now. Except this looks very, very different. A 1-4 FSU team that was absolutely hammered last week on the road in Dallas by SMU. Quarterback questions. We expect Brock Glenn to start today. DJ Uiagalelei dealing with a right throwing hand injury. In a Clemson team that looked dreadful week number 1 against Georgia, scoring only 3 points.
Yeah.
They've been a perfect 3-0 straight up and against the number since, winning by an average margin of more than 30 points per game, which leads us to this Saturday. And a 14.5-point spread in favor of the Tigers in Tallahassee. How do you make it make sense?
So this is one of these, and I think we kind of all do this, where we see the board, and you'll see the numbers, but then you take your time to dive in. And I saw this number at 14.5 and said to myself, man, Clemson's obviously off to a great start this year. FSU going to Death Valley, that's going to be a tough task. And then this game's in Florida State. Man, that's a lot of points. That is a lot of points for Florida State to be catching in their own building. And you go through Mike Norvell's coaching history, and he, in his first year at Memphis, lost once by more than 2 touchdowns in his own building, and that was the only time at Memphis. Mm-hmm. His first year at Florida State, that opening year, he lost once by 2 touchdowns. That was the only time it happened. The third time in his coaching career, he lost a home game by 2 touchdowns, happened this year against Boston College. If today they don't cover this game, that means he would match his entire career total of home losses by 2 touchdowns in the first 3 home games that they have this year, first 4 home games. It would speak to how bad this thing has gone. I have to take Florida State plus the points because I look at Clemson, and in their last 15 road games over the last 3 seasons, only 3 times they've beaten a team by more than 2 touchdowns. Again, this is a lot of points. I think the DJU absence helps FSU. It's not that Brock Glenn is better. It's that it gives Florida State a little extra oomph. Okay, you know what? We needed a change. It gives Clemson a little less zing heading into the game because there's some, we're going to pick on this kid. We're going to bully this kid here. He was in our Brock Glenn, who cares? You lull yourself all of a sudden. I know no one's lulled going to FSU. It happens. It's the way this sport works. I think the Seminoles cover this game. I fully believe they can win this game outright here and stun Clemson.
Yeah, it is their Super Bowl, so I
Yes.
understand the look in regards to Kevin. They're dead to me as far as I'm concerned. Based off of last week, I was dead wrong in regards to that breakdown against SMU. Now, the numbers perspective,
Yes.
Clemson has won 7 of the last 8 in the series. They lost last year in Death Valley in overtime, 31-24. Last time Florida State won in Tallahassee against Clemson was back in 2014 with Jimbo Fisher. So yeah, that's a cause of concern, right? So, again, I agree with Kevin. Brock Glenn can't be any worse than DJU. The one problem I do have in regards to Florida State as a whole, undisciplined, 10 penalties, 79 yards last week. That hurts. -5 in turnover margin. That hurts. They're not running the football 62 yards per game. So they're going to need a monumental effort. And when you have the better quarterback on the other side, with Cade Klubnik, 12 touchdowns, 2 interceptions. They won the last 3 games by an average margin of 32 points per game. My heart tells me Florida State, but it's a no play for me. I'll root it in for Kevin. Hopefully they can come in this weekend.
You know what's been so interesting? Despite how dreadful the Seminoles have been this year, starting 0-3, now 1-4, last week on the road in Dallas was the first time FSU was an underdog. They came nowhere close to covering against SMU. They allowed the Stangs to put up more than 200 yards on the ground. They have been dreadful stopping the run. They're allowing 166 yards per game and also establishing the run, 65 yards per game for this FSU team. Second worst rushing offense among power conference programs. Only UCLA is worse. Joe, I want to go back to you because both you and I looked at that FSU number at plus 290 before the season to win the ACC, and both bet it or believed that Florida State deserved to be the favorite. Now it's 5,000 to 1. We talked about this during the week. Florida State has now started 0-3 under Mike Norvell twice in the last 4 years. In 2021, they went on to win 5 games. They were also 5-7 in 2018 with Willie Taggart. That did not last long in Tallahassee. The last time that Florida State won less than 5 games in a season was 1975. They were 3-8. And then the following year began the Bobby Bowden era in Tallahassee. Just where does Florida State go from here to try to make it even palatable this season?
Well, you have to show some pride, especially playing at home. It's a rivalry game, potentially now a trending team in regards to the ACC. Second best team, you can make the argument behind Miami. This is it. This is all you have to play for. So, again, here's the problem, though, Ben. If they were losing close games and the offensive line was playing well, there was continuity, they were protecting DJU, I would say, hey, no problem. The mental mistakes, the turnovers, the fact that they're not stopping anybody in run support. Keith Jennings is still running down in Dallas. They couldn't stop him over 200 yards. He's basically a backup, taking over for Preston Stone. That is the problem. They are so undisciplined that is the issue that I have big picture, that if they're like 3-9, they're going to make the argument. And I know he's not deserving, but for that program right now of where they are, unacceptable for Florida State.
That's the point, Joe. He didn't have to follow up last season and go unbeaten again.
Yeah.
He didn't have to win I didn't pick him to win the ACC. I told you guys, right? I thought their win total under was a good look. I didn't like the way their opening schedule has been. They've been embarrassed. One of the reasons I'm on Florida State today is I fully believe he has to pull off one of the big upsets that he has the chance to pull off, which is today against Clemson and then at Miami and at Notre Dame.
Yeah.
Well, of the trio, this is the best chance. Lisi, you said it. You took the words right out of my mouth. This is their Super Bowl. Mm-hmm. Quite frankly, they can go out there today, pull off the win, and they can tell Duke, hey, we're not even going to show up in 2 weeks. This is the Super Bowl for Norvell and Florida State. And by the way, Clemson, the only time they were on the road this year was that Georgia game, and they only scored 3 points.
And the offense has been so much better since. We keep it in the ACC next.
Anyone that's been to a sporting event, the atmosphere before a game, I think Game Time Decisions has that same exact atmosphere. This is our arena. This is what we do. There is going to be an energy to game time decisions that you will feel night in and night out. The excitement you get when you lock your bets in, when you're figuring out what you want to do, we can zone in on the biggest games each night. I want this to be the place that people come to before the games start so they feel as ready as possible to lock in their cards. We are going to hit every single one of those markets that you need to know about. We're going to go through every single thing, and I've got a great team behind me that's going to help me get the job done. There is not going to be a better place, I promise you, than Game Time Decisions to get that new information, react to it, and be able to then bet accordingly. We will have everything at our disposal, and we will use that to our advantage. I'm Kevin Walsh. Tune into Game Time Decisions from 6 to 8 p.m. Eastern on SportsGrid.
I do a sliding DiVincenzo to the 1. Obviously, Terrence Shannon Jr., that is actually dynamic offensively and defensively. So we'll see how it works. I think it's a little bit of a work in progress. Do both teams win? Yes. I don't think at the end of the day, Minnesota could have afforded to keep Cat, Rudy, and Ant for that amount of money.
Betting above the rim. Only on SportsGrid.
What an ACC game we have tonight in Northern California. It's the Berkeley Bears taking on the perfect undefeated 5-0 Miami Hurricanes. Miami, one of those 7 teams that is ranked on the road as an 8.5-point favorite or greater on this first Saturday in October against an unranked foe. But Cal has not been half bad this year. A 3-0 start for the first time in a while under Justin Wilcox. We have not seen Berkeley since their loss, albeit narrow, in Tallahassee 2 Saturdays ago. But, Joe, we see the Canes laying double digits on the road, a 10.5-point spread in favor of Miami. The Hurricanes surviving last week on the Hail Mary that was and then wasn't against Virginia Tech. They've been favored in all 5 games this season, laying at least 16.5 in the previous 4. How competitive is tonight in Berkeley?
Tonight could be a little bit tricky. It's a West Coast trip. It's a 10:30, 11 o'clock start from Miami, and typically these are the games under the radar. In the past, Mario Cristobal and former head coaches would go in and potentially lose. Now, they do have the best quarterback on the floor and potentially in all FBS in regards to Cam Ward, 343 and 4 touchdowns. The plays that he made in regards to the fourth quarter to put his team in a position to win that game, amazing. That's why he's there with Jalen Milroe as a front runner. But Cal's defense only giving up 12 points per game, Kev. Very good in the back end in terms of the secondary, 182 passing yards allowed. They force teams to methodically work down the field. They're holding opposing quarterbacks to 51% completion percentage and are very opportunistic in the back end. I'm not going to be betting this game. I would take the points with Cal and lean to the under because I think they're going to make it ugly.
So this is one of these games that as I break down, I start to get angry, to be honest. Like that's, and it's just, now I'm on Miami, big picture. We know this. Yeah. I don't necessarily feel the need to run to bet Miami here, minus the 10. That is certainly the direction that which I would look. But some of the commentary around this game, where I just think people are trying to be the smartest man in the room, and look, sometimes it works out, right? Sometimes K-State BYU plays out where you luck box into 4 touchdowns in 3 minutes and do nothing the rest of the game, and you pull off that upset over the Wildcats like BYU did in the game. But I've heard, again, like, man, Cal's been real good this year. You look at that win against Auburn. Their last game was losing to Florida State, who we just talked about is completely dead on arrival. Like the only time this season Florida State won a game and looked like they had any idea what football was against the Cal Bears. Miami loses or has this close game with Va Tech. I know Vatek had struggled heading into the game. Well, Vatek, this is what we talk about. All of a sudden, Super Bowl level effort. This is the Canes. This is ACC play. I'm sorry that Vanderbilt and Rutgers didn't bring out what Miami, a top 10 team in college football, brought out of Virginia Tech. And also, if you're looking for the sleepy spot, you missed the window. It just passed you by.
Yeah.
They were catching 17.5 to Virginia Tech and nearly lose that game. Again, if the awful officiating ended up keeping the result on the field, they would have lost that football game. So I just look at this spot here, Mario Cristobal, and this is where I think this is really important. If Cristobal's turned the corner at this program, this is a win and cover.
Yeah.
If this team is due for the upset, then it very well could come tonight here. I can only look Miami. I do think Damian Martinez finally breaks out. If you look at his numbers against power opponents, the workload's there, the totals are there. 56.5 is too light against Cal in this game. This is a very important big picture game for Miami where I think a lot of people have convinced themselves Cal's much better than they actually are.
Miami 3-2 against the spread, favored in all 5. Last week against Virginia Tech, of course, was not a cover. The only non-cover against Florida A&M, and that was by a point. They won that game by 47. Cal has been a great underdog. Twice this year against Auburn and FSU, 1-1 against the spread, the one cover and outright victory against the Tigers. Under Justin Wilcox, who of course became the head coach in Berkeley in 2018, 28-18-1 against the number, the best of any Power 4 program that has been booked as a favorite at least 30 times in that span. But quickly here, Lisi, as we look at Cam Ward, who has that third best price to win a Heisman Trophy, is the second leading passer in college football, more than 1,780 yards, at least 304 yards in all 5 games for Miami. If the Canes are going to roll tonight in Berkeley, how good does Ward have to be?
I think he's got to be at least 250. He doesn't have to be elite because I still think from the interior, Miami has an advantage and Martinez might eat. But from the speed perspective, this is the fastest team Cal's faced on the outside, so he could light it up.
Fernando Mendoza, 303 yards, albeit an interception against FSU. Jaden Ott was back as well. Miami's rush defense still pretty solid this season. More on CFT comes your way next.
Anyone that's been to a sporting event, the atmosphere before a game, I think Game Time Decisions has that same exact atmosphere. The arena. This is what we do. There is going to be an energy to Game Time Decisions that you will feel night in and night out. The excitement you get when you lock your bets in, when you're figuring out what you want to do, we can zone in on the biggest games each night. I want this to be the place that people come to before the games start so they feel as ready as possible to lock in their cards. We are going to hit every single one of those markets that you need to know about. We're going to go through every single thing, and I've got a great team behind me that's going to help me get the job done. There is not going to be a better place, I promise you, than Game Time Decisions to get that new information, react to it, and be able to then bet accordingly. We will have everything at our disposal, and we will use that to our advantage. I'm Kevin Walsh. Tune into Game Time Decisions from 6 to 8 p.m. Eastern on SportsGrid.
I do a sliding DiVincenzo to the 1. Obviously, Terrence Jennings Jr., that is actually dynamic offensively and defensively. So we'll see how it works. I think it's a little bit of a work in progress. Do both teams win? Yes. I don't think at the end of the day, Minnesota could have afforded to keep Cat, Rudy, and Ant for that amount of money.
Betting above the rim. Only on SportsGrid.
Last week, to end out September, on the final Saturday of the month in college football, we told you about the game of the year so far in CFB, and perhaps the game of the year, the game of the last few years in college football, lived up to the hype. Alabama and Georgia. The Bulldogs down big early, 30-7 at the break. They claw their way back in the fourth quarter. They take a lead over the Crimson Tide, only for the Heisman favorite now, Jalen Milroe, and his outstanding 17-year-old wide receiver, Ryan Williams, to do some theatrics late, spinning and pirouetting down the sideline to lead the Crimson Tide over the Dogs. But as we shared, there was going to be national title and SEC implications. Where is the season? Still for Georgia, and of course the outlook now for Alabama. We start with the Bulldogs because, Kev, it's the Deep South's oldest rivalry, the 129th all-time meeting between UGA and Auburn. It is the second most played FBS rivalry in the history of the sport, only behind Wisconsin and Minnesota in the Battle of the Axe. Georgia has won 7 in a row, only 2 of the 7 decided by a single touchdown. We are expecting more of the same today in Athens between the hedges. 22.5-point spread in favor of the Dogs. What resilience do you think we see out of UGA today?
So, look, I mean, Georgia is going to win this football game. I think we kind of all know that. Auburn has not shown enough mettle to suggest that they're going to be able to put the Dogs on upset alert. I do think it's very interesting, though. A lot of people right now are willingly capping, Georgia off a loss. You got to lock and load here. There's no Georgia off a loss. Sample size. Georgia off of a loss are SEC games, title games, to Alabama. Those are your, there's no way we can use last year's SEC title game loss to Alabama, translate to what they did at Florida State, and be like, see, that's what they're going to do in this game here. I think you have to be very, very cautious assuming that. For me, I love under 52 in this matchup. This is the total last week. This is higher than the total last week of the best bet over I had in the Bama game. I understand that you can say Auburn's defense isn't as good. Auburn's offense is not even in the same planet of what the Crimson Tide were entering that game with off of a bye. Don't forget, Georgia's defense completely buckled down in the second half. You want a trend? The last time this team gave up over 30 points, 40 points, was Ohio State in the semis. Then in the title game, they held TCU to 7. I know they scored 65. That offense left a loud out on that field. I think this is a slower game. I think you're talking a final score around 34-7, 31-7. I love the under here. I'll be stunned if you see more than 10 points scored by the Auburn Tigers.
Yeah, Kev brings up great points. From the series perspective, Georgia has won 7 straight, guys. They've won the last 4 in regards to the series by an average margin of 21 points per game. This game last year was a 7-point game.
Right.
They had them on the ropes. That was the Brock Bowers final drive. He finished that game 7 receptions, $152. Carson Beck did throw for over 300 in regards to that matchup. This game, and Kevin's right, we don't have a sample size for Georgia coming off a loss. It's more about Auburn for me. They've lost 2 straight. This team is reeling. How they've lost now at home to Arkansas, booked as a favorite, to last week, Oklahoma, 5 wide receivers out. They have Oklahoma and Hawkins dead and buried. Peyton Thorne throws the pick 6. Kevin knows I was on the over. Happy about that. But, I mean, Hugh Freeze calling out players, the media. This looks like another situation of Brian Harsin or another just situation that could be a barn fight. I mean, I want no part of Auburn. Here's the other factor, Ben. Minus 11 in turnover margin. You cannot cover games when you're committing turnovers and not forcing them. I don't know what the mindset of Auburn is, even though it's a rivalry game. I have to think that mindset in the second half of the Georgia defense carries through, and we look to now Carson Beck, but more importantly, maybe Oscar Delpin, those tight ends, the way they ate last year.
Auburn led 21-10 last week against Oklahoma with less than 12 minutes remaining in regulation. They then missed a field goal, and Peyton Thorne, who was supposed to be the veteran, threw a pick 6. They outgained Oklahoma 482 yards to only 291, and still found a way to cough up that football game. The Tigers this year, 2-3, both straight up and against the spread. Georgia 0-2 against the number in SEC play. Georgia in the previous 3 seasons had been really good covering numbers in conference action. 16-12 ATS, favored in all 28. To your point, there is no sample size. Georgia off a loss especially in the regular season since 2020. They had won 42 consecutive regular season games before last week in Tuscaloosa. And Carson Beck was good in the fourth quarter in that second half. 439 yards, 3 touchdowns, albeit 3 interceptions. So quickly here, Kev, let's look at Georgia's national championship movement. We knew there was going to be odds implication based on the matchup in Tuscaloosa last week. The price has doubled on UGA to win the SEC because of a conference loss, but they're still a minus 280 favorite to reach the college football playoff. It's plus 550 to win the national championship, but still the 4th best number in the country.
Yeah, I bet them in the middle of that game at plus 900 to win the national championship. Obviously, I'm ecstatic to see that number is dropped even though they lost the game. They actually went back to national title favorites when they took that lead in the fourth quarter. It's incredible, the blows that were traded there, but there's no panic for me on Georgia. Yes, there's a tough schedule remaining, but so far this Georgia season is going the way every Georgia season goes.
Yeah.
They beat everybody not named Alabama. You know, Kirby has the one win against Alabama, which was a national championship, and you can't take that away from him. He's also 1-9 against the Crimson Tide. They completely own him, despite, the chest puffing out and tough talk, Ben. So I think UGA, 9-1, obviously a great number. I think you can still get in at these 550s and 6-1s if you can find good numbers, because to me, still, power rating, I think they're the best team in college football.
And I do quickly want to say that was one of our points building up the atmosphere for last week in Alabama. The beauty of the expansion of the college football playoff era to 12 teams. I don't think there's much of an argument that Alabama and Georgia are not at least 2 of the 5 best teams nationally in college football, and now both have the opportunity still, with a great game last week, to still contend for a national championship at the end of this season. Of course, now we see Alabama at a plus 380 number. Second best price to win the national championship, only 10 cents behind the Ohio State Buckeyes. So, Joe, now we go to the Crimson Tide, riding high after a dramatic come-from-behind victory at home last week. They head to Nashville. They're more than a 3-touchdown favorite as well against Vanderbilt. Vandy has not beaten Bama since 1984. That's 28 consecutive wins for the Crimson Tide. This only the 4th meeting between the two schools since 2011. We talk about sleepy spots and trap games all the time. Is that this for the Crimson Tide?
It's possible, but I'm not getting in front of this trend. They've won 12 straight in the series. Last time they played, they won 55-3. Pavia and that offense are very good and balanced. But, again, it comes down to Jalen Milroe, the speed of Ryan Williams on the outside. I just don't think Vanderbilt's going to be able to contain them. They did have issues with Brady Cook and Luther Burden last time they played. I don't see it changing in regards to this. Maybe they'll be in potential, like down 30, and maybe you have a shot at the back door. But I can't look any other way but Alabama in regards to this matchup, Kev.
Yeah, for me, there's 2 points to make. One, the bet is Jalen Milroe under 68.5 rushing yards. He has never had back-to-back games with 50 rushing yards. I am worried that the offensive line is so much better this year that those big negative plays won't happen. But I got to take a chance when you look at Vanderbilt this year in games against Kyron Drones and Brady Cook. I know it's cautious comps. They're not the same level of athletes, but 27 carries for 26 yards for those quarterbacks. Each were sacked 3 times. So I'm on under 68.5 for Jalen Milroe.
Go ahead. Sorry.
The second point, it just has to be said, because if anybody else was doing it, we'd be singing it from the hills. Every single time now this kid steps out onto the field, one of the top quarterbacks in the country steps out there and he outplays him. Every single time. Jackson Dart, come get this work. Jaden Daniels, come get this work. Back in the SEC title game, come get this work. Oh, back here, you're the favorite to go first overall. Come get this work. He hasn't lost an SEC game. He's never lost an SEC game. This was a show that used to be built on loving winners. And then we got built on loving throwing for 4,000 yards against Army. This kid's a winner at a different level.
Jalen Milroe, the Heisman Trophy favorite at plus 250. More CFT next.
Doing it with wins. With wins. Anyone that's been to a sporting event, the atmosphere before a game, I think Game Time Decisions has that same exact atmosphere. This is our arena. This is what we do. There is going to be an energy to game time decisions that you will feel night in and night out. The excitement you get when you lock your bets in, when you're figuring out what you want to do, we can zone in on the biggest games each night. I want this to be the place that people come to before the games start so they feel as ready as possible to lock in their cards. We are going to hit every single one of those markets that you need to know about. We're going to go through every single thing, and I've got a great team behind me that's going to help me get the job done. There is not going to be a better place, I promise you, than Game Time Decisions to get that new information, react to it, and be able to then bet accordingly. We will have everything at our disposal, and we will use that to our advantage. I'm Kevin Walsh. Tune into Game Time Decisions from 6 to 8 p.m. Eastern on SportsGrid.
I do a sliding DiVincenzo to the 1. Obviously, Terrence Edmonds Jr., that is actually dynamic offensively and defensively. So we'll see how it works. I think it's a little bit of a work in progress. Do both teams win? Yes. I don't think at the end of the day, Minnesota could have afforded to keep Cat, Rudy, and Ant with that amount of money.
Betting above the rim. Only on SportsGrid.
On this first Saturday in October, there is only one ranked versus ranked top 25 matchup, and it technically does pass that test because Texas A&M enters week 6 of the college football campaign number 25 in the country alongside UNLV. Of course, the Runnin' Rebs were beat last night at home in Las Vegas in overtime by Syracuse. So, Kev, here is our only ranked versus ranked matchup. And it's nearly 45 minutes into college football today. Not saying our production programming is necessarily what an expectation could be for the magnitude of a game, but I think it does speak volumes that it's a little bit deeper down in the show. A&M, 2.5-point home favorite in College Station against Missouri. We've got the team that has the lower ranking that is the home favorite, so don't call it an upset if A&M does win at Kyle Field today.
Yeah, I mean, as far as the ranked nature, the placement of the game, I mean, I've never felt more justified than anything in my life than my confusion as to the way people talk about Missouri. Because Missouri now for the second time this year is playing a ranked game that nobody could care less about. And this time it's an SEC game. Like the first time it was Boston College. I think they played that game on the CW maybe.
Yeah.
I mean, legit, come on now. This game, look, Missouri this season has done nothing. I mean, absolutely nothing. The only noteworthy thing they've done is deserve to lose a football game to Vanderbilt, most likely. But Texas A&M's kind of in the same boat. You brought Notre Dame into your building. Again, that bizarre season they're having, are they good? Are they great? Are they terrible? I don't know. And everything following that has been a big bag of blech. So I look at this game, it's a really tough one to cap. Honestly, it's probably not on the card, Joe, if it's not ranked in one of the big games. I get to a Mizzou team total, though, with them off the bye, needing to respond after that Vanderbilt game, and willingly fading the Elko defense here that I don't think's found a rhythm just yet under this regime. I think it's the toughest offense to have played thus far. I took Missouri team total over 23.5.
If Missouri was at home, I would give the edge to the Tigers. The fact, even though they're coming out of a bye week, they've played down to the level of competition this year, struggled with Boston College and Castellanos. He didn't have a great game, and they were in that game in the second half, and obviously against Vanderbilt, the overtime win with the kid missing the field goal. However, the way Texas A&M, from a defensive perspective, especially in the second half against Taylon Green and Jaquindon Jackson shut down that offense, I think it'll carry in regards to this matchup. The fact that it's under a field goal, the 110,000 fans, Marcel Reed, his athleticism, and the fact that, the secondary for Texas A&M right now, holding opposing offenses to 57% completion percentage, 7 interceptions forced. I like that at home. If they were on the road with the freshmen, I'd say no way. I can't back it. The fact that they're at home with Elko, and even though they didn't play that great against Notre Dame, you still got to give them props from a defensive perspective. They've been in every game. Offense potentially can score here. I like the over, and I like A&M.
Spread math, right? We're giving the credit to the atmosphere and one of the best in college football at Kyle Field. This would be a neutral site pick'em, maybe a slight edge to Mizzou, depending on what you rate home field advantage. Missouri has been a favorite of at least 2 touchdowns in its only 2 games against power competition. They came nowhere close to covering in either. They won those 2 games by a combined 9 points. Beat BC by 6, 27-21. Survived in double OT 2 weeks ago against Vanderbilt, 30-27. In SEC play under Eli Drinkwitz, they are 14-11 against the spread. That is Missouri since 2021, tied with Arkansas for the best cover percentage in conference action in the Southeastern Conference. Texas A&M is a 4-1 football team. Missouri is 4-0. The Tigers are one of 19 remaining FBS undefeated programs this year. But A&M, Kev, to your point, hasn't been overly impressive either. They're 1-3 against the spread, and they're 4 games against FBS foes. The only cover, the road victory at Florida. I will say this in terms of the quarterback battle for today. We'll talk Brady Cook in just a moment. There is some speculation that Connor Wigman is questionable for Mike Elko and A&M. Don't play him. Trust the freshman Marcel Reed, who has been playing clean and efficient football for Texas A&M.
Yeah, I think that's another reason why this is a game that I'm only playing a team total at, because this quarterback uncertainty that we have with Texas A&M, where a lot of people feel that Reed is the better option, and even if Wegman's good to go, and it looks like he is good to go, right? People, oh, no, please no. Despite all the preseason hype he was one of the 5 highest quarterbacks in terms of first overall draft odds heading into this year.
Drafts, he was a top 10, top 15 pick. Crazy.
Yeah. I mean, then again, NFL teams do make a lot of bad mistakes, so you could certainly see it playing out like that. I think this is just a really important game, big picture. It's up to Texas A&M here to get a win, to make sure we don't have Missouri in our college football playoff. Let's get this team way out of – I mean, because then also one of the CFP games, right? I mean, they might, air – come on now. We don't need that. Missouri is not one of the 10 best teams in college football. I don't care that the 9 is there. I don't know where you're going to have in the top 10. You might try and sneak them back. We'll be on it. I'll be like a hawk. Let me tell you that right now. So this is a Missouri team for me. A loss today, let's get them out of here. Let's just drop them, because if they do win this game, they'll be booked as favorites in all but one of their remaining matchups. And are they going to keep out an 11-1 SEC team?
No, probably not. So, and again, last year they battle-tested the best teams in the conference. Yep. Not the same right now, but that's why they play the games. And you do have a freshman quarterback. That's always a concern. Now, the difference between Marcel Reed and Connor Wegman, as you know, Ben, I mean, Marcel Reed averaging well over 5 yards per rush, over 200 yards on the ground. The RPO game is in play with Marcel Reed as opposed to Connor Wegman. That's another attribute to put pressure on Missouri. They did a great job against Castellanos and Boston College, but Texas A&M a little bit bigger than BC in the front. We'll see how this game plays out, but I like the over. I think this game could potentially get into the 50s.
The Tigers are the best, or the 8th best scoring defense in the country, only allowing 12 points per game. 3rd best total defense, allowing just 219 total yards. But this by far their most difficult test. And I will say, to kind of skew those metrics, Missouri against Power 4 competition has allowed at least 21 points in each of those 2 games. Le'Veon Moss behind Joe's left shoulder, 90 rushing yards in all 3 starts that Marcel Reed has made this year. We keep it in the SEC next.
Anyone that's been to a sporting event, the atmosphere before a game, I think Game Time Decisions has that same exact atmosphere. This is our arena. This is what we do. There is going to be an energy to game time decisions that you will feel night in and night out. The excitement you get when you lock your bets in, when you're figuring out what you want to do, we can zone in on the biggest games each night. I want this to be the place that people come to before the games start so they feel as ready as possible to lock in their cards. We are going to hit every single one of those markets that you need to know about. We're going to go through every single thing, and I've got a great team behind me that's going to help me get the job done. There is not going to be a better place, I promise you, than Game Time Decisions to get that new information, react to it, and be able to then bet accordingly. We will have everything at our disposal, and we will use that to our advantage. I'm Kevin Walsh. Tune into Game Time Decisions from 6 to 8 p.m. Eastern on SportsGrid.
I do a sliding DiVincenzo to the 1. Obviously, Terrence Jr., that is actually dynamic offensively and defensively. So we'll see how it works. I think it's a little bit of a work in progress. Do both teams win? Yes. I don't think at the end of the day, Minnesota could have afforded to keep Cat, Rudy, and Ant for that amount of money.
Betting above the rim. Only on SportsGrid.
We keep it in the Southeastern Conference for another one of those spots on what might be a chaotic Saturday. At least that could be the billing, with not many ranked versus ranked games. Tennessee, one of those 7 teams that is a ranked team on the road against an unranked foe that is laying at least 8.5 points. It's nearly 2 touchdowns in favor of the Volunteers. And Joe, they head to Fayetteville, where under Sam Pittman, the Hogs have been a great underdog. 20-9 against the numbers since 2020 when Pittman took over. That's the best of any FBS program, booked as a dog at least 20 times. In 3 of those 20 covers this season, Arkansas is perfect as an underdog covering spreads, 3-0 ATS. Can the Razorbacks keep it within 2 touchdowns against the Vols today?
I think they can. And again, from the series perspective, the last time they played was back in 2020. Arkansas has won 3 straight against the Volunteers. I can tell you, as long as I've watched college football, this series potentially goes off the rails. I can tell you that in regards to high-scoring games, overtime, you name it. But the biggest thing for me is that I think Arkansas, with their rushing attack of Jaquindon Jackson, Taylon Green, they're averaging 212 on the ground. I think they can run the football. I think they're a little bit bigger than what Tennessee has faced up until this point. And that's not a knock in regards to Oklahoma and some of the other teams. Tennessee's run support, phenomenal. 50 yards per game, less than 2 yards per carry. But I believe the Hogs up front will dictate this game. I don't know if they win, Ben, but I still like the offensive line of Arkansas, and I like that defense. Let's not forget, they lost to A&M. They cover, right? That was a very good game. They were in it, and they lost to Oklahoma State on the road. They should have won that game. They could have been 5-0 if you think about it, if things broke their way.
Yeah.
I think they're going to be in this game.
Covered in both, by the way.
No, and I think it's a fair way to break it down, right? To just like when you say they could have been 5-0, where I think that's relevant is if they were, what's this line?
For sure.
9.5, probably. So it's a big thing. The reason I back off the side here, because I was actually looking for the first time this season, I was thinking maybe not Tennessee. Josh Heupel in his SEC career is not only 3-0 straight up, he's 3-0 against the number with really good wins. At Kentucky, abused LSU on the road. And then last year, even on a down year with Milton, covered a game at home against Texas A&M, winning by a score. Now, again, laying 14 on the road is a completely different animal than those prior 3 instances here. But I had to back off. The thing that catches my eye in this game is Nico and what we get out of him. Because the under-the-radar story, I think, with Tennessee is they are winning in spite of him not having a monster season. Those soft games with Chattanooga, Kent State, it's like, oh, look at this kid. He's not had to do a lot. Oklahoma really bottled him up.
Yeah.
If he's a Heisman candidate, they are a real national title contender. He's not been that so far this season through 4 games in my eyes.
Multiple interceptions against the first power conference competition, a bad NC State team. And 2 weeks ago, in their most recent game for the Volunteers, 13 of 21 for 194 yards and a touchdown in Norman. For Tennessee, maybe opponent-wise, it's not the most difficult start to SEC play, but 2 straight road games, albeit with an off week in between. Nico Iamaleava, 211 yards or less in the last 3 games for the Volunteers, which leads to Nikki Treats' props for today, 240 and a half. To find Pater minus 140. And I guess when you're the Vols, you're expected to score. They're the best scoring offense in the country, averaging 54 points per game. But I think what stands out, and one of the reasons people are overly optimistic, and I believe rightfully so, on the Vols, they're the best total defense. They're tied for the second best scoring defense in the country, and they're the second best rushing defense as well, only allowing 51 yards per game. And, Joe, when you break down this football game, maybe it's not the quarterbacks in Taylon Green versus Nikki Treats. It might be the running backs. Action, Jaquindon Jackson behind you, and Dylan Sampson. 10 rushing touchdowns this year, second most nationally, only behind Boise's Ashton Jensen.
And Sampson could catch the football out of the backfield. I mean, you got him in space. He's like Alvin Kamara 2.0. He could go from point A to point B in a heartbeat. So, granted, tempo will be a critical factor in regards to this. If you want a similar type of game, Oklahoma State did run tempo in the second half of that matchup. That's what allowed them to win it 38-31. I like Arkansas, but I like the total 57.5. I think we're going to get some points.
Yeah, the Razorbacks pretty good defending the run so far this year. Only 93 yards allowed on the ground, one of 24 FBS teams, allowing less than the century mark defending the run so far this season. Dylan Sampson, at least 92 rushing yards for Tennessee in all 4 games. The Vols a favorite in all 4. They're a perfect 4-0 against the spread, still covering by an average margin of more than 3 touchdowns. That's the best in the country. Hour 2 next.
Anyone that's been to a sporting event, the atmosphere before a game, I think Game Time Decisions has that same exact atmosphere. This is our arena. This is what we do. There is going to be an energy to Game Time Decisions that you will feel night in and night out. The excitement you get when you lock your bets in, when you're figuring out what you want to do, we can zone in on the biggest games each night. I want this to be the place that people come to before the games start so they feel as ready as possible to lock in their cards. We are going to hit every single one of those markets that you need to know about. We're going to go through every single thing, and I've got a great team behind me that's going to help me get the job done. There is not going to be a better place, I promise you, than Game Time Decisions to get that new information, react to it, and be able to then bet accordingly. We will have everything at our disposal, and we will use that to our advantage. I'm Kevin Walsh. Tune into Game Time Decisions from 6 to 8 p.m. Eastern on SportsGrid.
I do a sliding DiVincenzo to the 1. Obviously, Terrence St. Jr., that is actually dynamic offensively and defensively. So we'll see how it works. I think it's a little bit of work in progress. Do both teams win? Yes. I don't think at the end of the day, Minnesota could have afforded to keep Cat, Rudy, and Ant for that amount of money.
Betting above the rim. Only on SportsGrid.